If we tell them these blocks can't be toys, that they can't represent anything other than what the teacher says, we're actually stifling their first experiences with mathematical modeling. These are tools, not toys. Do you use this phrase in your math classroom? If so, I'm going to challenge you to listen for the next few minutes with an open mind. Because I used to use that phrase, then I realized it's actually the exact opposite of what I should be saying. Instead of limiting play in the classroom, I want to share with you how I learned that we should all embrace it at all levels of mathematics. And I get it. We want focus, we want respect for all the materials, we want students to actually use these tools productively. But I'm here now recommending that you remove that phrase from your classroom. When we say these are tools, not toys, we may accidentally and unintentionally be missing a major point of using physical objects in schools. I want to talk about why these objects are actually both tools and toys, and why embracing the toy side of math manipulatives is actually the secret to building flexible algebraic thinkers, the ones we're all striving for. When I was thinking about this the other day, I actually asked Siri, what's the definition of a toy? And her answer was fascinating. In fact, you can do it yourself. You can go ahead and ask Siri what the definition of a toy is. Wait, actually, don't do that yet. Do that after this video. But go ask her. Here's what she said, though. She said a toy is an object for a child to play with, typically a model or a miniature replica of something. Think about that. When a child picks up a wooden block and says, "This is my race car," or "This is a skyscraper," they're not just playing, they're performing a high-level cognitive act. Representation. In math, that's exactly what we're asking them to do with these objects. We want them to look at these blocks and understand the blocks can represent 10 grapes, or 5 grapes, or 1 grape. We want them to see letters and understand how those letters represent values. We want them to look at a line in a graph and see a rate of change. We are literally asking them to learn how one thing can represent something else, or as Siri put it, to model or replicate something in the world. If we tell them these blocks can't be toys, that they can't represent anything other than what the teacher says, we're actually stifling their first experiences with mathematical modeling. Instead, we want them to understand that these objects can represent many things, just as toys can. Essentially, we're leaning into the idea of thinking flexibly. Now, there's a pattern I've noticed in many classrooms. Often the tools, not toys, is spoken by teachers who are a bit afraid of having a bunch of blocks out in their rooms that will lead to chaos, lead to mess everywhere. When I've talked to many of these teachers, they've shared with me that they have had difficulty getting kids to stay focused and getting them to solve mathematics with all of these toys and blocks and things on the tables. In other discussions, these teachers mention that it's just easier for classroom management to have the students watch them, the teacher, watch them use the tools, or even easier, just show a drawn model or an expression or an equation on the board. That's way less of a mess. And hey, I get that. However, there is a middle ground. If we set ourselves up and our students up for success by creating parameters and by focusing on how the tools can be used to solve math problems, everyone wins. So what does that look like? Of course, we all know that we don't just want students building houses with these blocks. We want them to use the blocks to help them with a math problem in front of them. And I'll show you a strategy that works to transition a child to use the manipulatives to solve problems in a minute. For right now, though, here's a teacher tip I picked up a number of years back. The first time that you let the students actually touch the manipulatives, give them time to literally play with them. This unstructured playtime is essential to allow them to understand how the objects work. How many sides they have, to feel the different sizes, to feel how they all fit together. Do they connect or not? This is going to help them consider how to use the manipulatives later during a math class. After that unstructured playtime, tell the students they have 20 seconds, or pick the amount of time you want to use, to put the manipulatives back in the bag or back in the box. Cycle through that play. Put away, play, put away, play, put away. Cycle through that activity a few times. So often, it's the putting away of the manipulatives that's the major challenge in many classrooms. I've worked with a large number of teachers who have tried this activity and told me it was a game changer. That put away, play, put away, play. It did take some time in advance and it took some time out of their classroom, but it really helped set the stage for what are our expectations. It almost sounds too simple, but we often just assume students will know what we mean when we say put things away. Now, it's important to realize that having students put away their things after this unstructured playtime may actually result in a bit of grief from the students. I don't say this lightly. Some students may actually have grief when we ask them to convert this block from their favorite imagined sports car back into a block. I've had teachers share this challenge with me. I also heard from a teacher a great strategy to use if this happens in your class. If you do have students who have difficulty with this transition, sometimes having a few students share out how they imagine their blocks, or have students use a turn and talk to explain how they use their blocks. For some reason, by allowing that time for students to show off their imaginations before putting the blocks away or the counters away, many students are less stressed by that transition. Once students have touched and played with the new manipulatives, then once they've learned how and where to put them away, we can move on to using them for math. However, again, we can't just assume students will know how to do this. Therefore, we can try a transition like this. Okay, so now we're going to see how we can use these manipulatives to represent a math problem. We can present a problem scenario, then we can ask students how this problem could be represented with the manipulatives. Then, when students do use the manipulatives to represent and solve problems, we can highlight that use to the rest of the class. I love using a document camera for this, or even taking a picture with my phone, so that I can project it to the large screen. When we ask other students to explain how they see that manipulatives were used, they develop a deeper understanding of how to use them themselves. They develop that connection about how does that relate to an equation or to a model when I ask them to explain what they see on the board, what they see other students did with these manipulatives. But don't forget to go back to that free, unstructured playtime too. This is still so important. Some teachers even have a station in small groups once a week, or maybe a little bit less often than that, when it's just free play with those manipulatives, letting the students get that out of their system and not limiting that playtime during specific times. This can make all the difference. Math isn't just about the most efficient path, it's about flexibility. When we allow for playful exploration, we're telling students, use these to show me how you see the problem. When a student feels free to move counters around and play with the groupings, they're building the mental muscle to see multiple strategies. They're not just following a recipe, they're becoming chefs. They're moving beyond paint by number and exploring how to express their own ideas. And back to the math, one of the biggest myths in education is that manipulatives are just the training wheels for kids who aren't ready for real math. We think they should expire by the time a student hits middle school. But look at the world's leading scientists and engineers. They don't just jump to equations, they build physical models, they use simulations, they play with 3D ideas in space. If we kill the toy aspect of math in second grade, students start to believe that math is only valid if it's abstract and difficult. By keeping the wonder alive, by using algebra tiles in 8th grade or physical models in calculus, we show them that understanding a concept is always more important than just memorizing a formula. Yes, we may not always let the students use manipulatives during every test or during every activity, but leaning into their use in all grade levels can have a huge impact. In fact, in previous videos I've posted, and talking to engineers in real life, many engineers and folks in the science world shared with me that the use of physical manipulatives in very high-level mathematics and science courses, like graduate-level courses, was essential to their learning. It's important that we don't just say these tools are for students who are at a lower level. We don't tell an architect that their 3D model is a toy because they should be able to just see what they have in the blueprints. Instead, we recognize the model is where the errors are found. Why do we deny our students the same professional grade exploration? As a side note, I always like to challenge some of the higher achieving students in the classes I'm in. That's some great work you have there. I want to challenge you. Can you show me the same result using only these manipulatives? This helps those students to make connections they might not have made beforehand. This playing with manipulatives and relating that play to the work they did on paper is great for deepening their understanding. So if we've kind of realized that we're not supposed to say tools, not toys, what should we say instead? Instead of a correction, let's offer this invitation. Try saying, these are the objects we use to build our ideas, or I want you to show me what's happening in your head using these. Or another fantastic phrase is to show me your thinking with the blocks before you write it with the pencil. This frames the manipulative as a rough draft and takes the pressure off of getting the math right immediately. This tiny shift moves the authority from us to them, and it turns the classroom from a place of do what I do to a place of show me how you're thinking. At the end of the day, we want curious kids. We want kids that aren't afraid to try a different representation when they get stuck. And that starts by realizing that play isn't the opposite of work. It's the fuel for it.